Hello, this is the Growth League podcast. My name is Caleb Clark, and my mission for this show is pretty simple. It's to learn from marketers on how they're playing the great game of marketing leadership, their ideas, experiences, perspective, wins and losses, and the playbook that they've established over time. Listen, there's more than one way to lead a marketing team and a marketing function. So if you're a VP, a CMO, director, or someone aspiring to fill one of these marketing leadership roles in the future, tune in to learn from some of the best in the business.
You got to remember that not every platform is appropriate for every brand. It really depends on what the product, service, the customer base, the demographic. A lot of different factors really come into play when selecting a platform where you want to advertise, because again, not every eyeball is a valuable eyeball for a specific brand.
Today, I have the privilege of chatting with Steve Lemenov, who is currently the Director of Marketing at Armasight. Steve has a ton of experience, over 16 years, in fact, leading and participating in complex sales transactions, marketing campaigns, leading teams, leading functions. He has experience across both domestic and international relationships, multiple different channels, indoor, outdoor, DSP, programmatic, retargeting. The list goes on and on. And Steve is also leading a team and a function within marketing within an industry that doesn't make it super easy for marketers. There needs to be a lot of creativity and bit of a different approach as it relates to getting the right message to the right people at the right time. And that's, of course, in I shouldn't say shooting sport. Is that the right way to categorize the industry, Steve?
Yes, I would categorize it in the outdoors shooting sports industry.
Awesome. Well, Steve, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here.
I appreciate it, Caleb. I'm actually humbled that you reached out to me and wanting me to be on your podcast. I'll try not to disappoint.
No, I think you'll be great. And, just based on, you spent a chunk of time at American Technologies Network Corp. And from a sales program director, leading the marketing function for over 6 years. Steve, tell me a little bit about your journey towards the tail end of that experience and what brought you to Armasight and what's kept you there for the last 7 months.
Well, it's a very good question. Kind of rewinding back, I wasn't always in this industry. After my university, I was in finance and real estate, and shooting sports has always been a passion of mine since I was a child. And I always go to the range. My former coach, who is no longer with us, Paul Callahan, kind of taught us the basics, safety, all those things. And I fell in love with this sport. It's very challenging, it's very rewarding, and I always wanted to get into this industry. And so I had an opportunity because of a connection. My brother-in-law actually worked at American Technologies and got me into the door with an interview. And I started in customer service there. Right. And I worked my way up through sales. And after doing about 10 years of sales, both domestically and internationally, because of my experience dealing with the customers and really understanding the customer and who we serviced, I was transitioned to marketing, and which was a challenge because, besides a few classes at the university, I had no idea where to start from. So it was a challenge. It was a new challenge, and it was very exciting for me. I had a team which I had to manage, but I didn't know what I was doing, honestly. Right. It was like throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticked at first. But then I joined a bunch of forums. I started following a bunch of blogs, listening to Gary Vee, a bunch of other people in the marketing space, and kind of trying to get myself really quickly up to speed. I learned that you really need to know your audience. And because of my past sales experience and knowing the audience, I understood how to refine our targeting and the direction we need to take us to the next level. And being in Silicon Valley and having some friends in tech and IT, I had some conversations, and some suggested some forms of marketing that I really didn't see in the shooting sports. The shooting sports is, an old industry, and it's like a dinosaur almost. It's very slow to accept change.
Hmm.
And some of the new things that I kind of discovered and implemented were not really done. Yes, people were doing email marketing, harvesting lists, the vertical publishers, having display ads on relevant, industry vertical publishers. But there were programmatic wasn't, nobody's
Right.
doing a programmatic, or virtually nobody was really looking at programmatic 6 years ago. And other kind of nuanced things. Facebook kind of, when I started, I took over Facebook, and we had maybe 30,000 followers. In my tenure, we grew it to about 300,000 followers. And God, that was challenging, because some of these platforms just do not like our industry.
Right.
And every time we were banned, I had a mini stroke or heart attack, truth be told, because we were relying so much on that traffic at that point, since after we got things revved up, and about 30% of our traffic came from Facebook. Every time they would ban us, all the ads came down. Overnight traffic season, you figure out what happened. What did we do? We didn't do anything. We're looking at policy, nothing's changed. Some algorithm caught something, some person that doesn't know A from B regarding the shooting sports classified this as something that wasn't. And at one point I had to actually use personal connections to reach out to somebody in Facebook at a higher level to get somebody else to review and reinstate us.
Right.
That didn't really work. I had to find a workaround, and eventually found some workarounds and how to do things. And to this day, still things are running. I believe at AT&T, I still get their commercials in my phone and other places. But some of those things, are interesting, because you have to really think out of the box and overcome challenges to stay relevant and be ahead of the competition
Right.
in the space you're operating.
Right. Well, that seems like a game, right? A fun
It
game.
is a whack-a-mole sometimes.
Yeah. Based on your tenure now at Armasight, I think a large chunk of our audience that we build this podcast for find themselves in the early days of running a marketing function for a new company, or perhaps they're right on the precipice of taking over a marketing function. Can you share a little bit high level about, call it the first 6 months at Armasight? What was your priority or your mission as it relates to getting in and getting your infrastructure and your philosophy implemented into this company from a marketing perspective?
That's a very good question. So when I took over, there were certain things in place, but not enough, not to what I was used to. And the first step is always planning. You have to plan, and you have to establish a budget, and you have to understand what the brand strategy is, right? Because we can have perceptions or ideas in our minds, but if we don't have specific marching orders from, let's say, senior staff or key stakeholders regarding how they want to attack, let's say, the market, or what do they want to do? Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Is it a
Yeah.
hybrid? Is it, everything under the sun? You need to have a structured perspective of what it is your goal is, right?
Right.
And from there, you need to kind of build, if I'm doing a B2B and I'm not, and you don't want to have a perception of channel conflict with your resellers, and you can't compete
Right.
with them on your site, what do you need to do to help propagate and do a global brand lift,
Right.
brand awareness, right? So performance marketing at that point doesn't really play as much value to you, because you're not trying to harness or capture those direct sales, because what you're trying to do is grow the channel globally and expand your dealer base and give them resources to push your brand
Right.
and your value proposition to their audience, because you're relying on that channel. If you'll say, on the conversely, if your strategy is direct to consumer, which a lot of brands are kind of going that route and trying to cut out the middleman to retain margin, performance marketing would be,
Right.
a different direction. You'd be heavy on Google, SEO optimization, Google, Bing, Facebook ads, everything you could possibly do to drive that traffic, targeted traffic.
Yep.
Traffic for the sake of traffic is meaningless, right?
Right.
You have to refine the traffic based on parameters you established, that, you have to ascertain your demographic, who your core customer is, and target them specifically with intent to make sure they convert.
Right.
That's kind of the bottom line of performance marketing. And the hybrid version is a little bit of both. So depending on the brand strategy of the organization, you would build out various stages of implementation, um, budget permitted, because we
Well,
don't work in a vacuum.
that's
Let's
right.
be honest and frank. Marketing always is the first to suffer in terms of budget reductions or budget cuts, or people getting laid off in marketing, which is counterintuitive, because marketing is the mechanism that pushes the
Right.
brand. The advertising feeds
Well, and
sales
that's
to convert, right? It's counterintuitive to upper management, because typically marketing is the first to go, but
yeah.
marketing is what feeds the machine.
Yeah. Well, and that just further emphasizes, and we might have talked about this before, but it further emphasizes the significant importance of positioning the function as a profit generator, not a cost center, right? Because it's
Right.
actually that cost centers are the first thing to get cut, and marketing usually, if not deployed as sort of reworked from what you were talking about, the brand strategy, the business case. If it's just random acts of marketing, it's very likely it's going to become a cost center and get cut, right?
Right.
So what I heard from you is what you knew was critically important in your first days on the job was to understand from the key stakeholders, where are we going, what defines success, what's the good news story we're trying to tell, and then what is the business case we're meant to support. And then that sort of gave you the board game, as you will, was set up at that point. And then at that point, you can start building your plan. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. It's like a chess game, right?
Yeah.
You have the board, you have a strategy of attack, and depending on your marching orders, you formulate the plan to encompass that strategy and really build that out. So there's many mechanisms, content marketing, programmatic retargeting, even using AI, doing
Mm-hmm.
all these new techniques and mechanisms that is available to today's marketer. You would piecemeal and strategically select to utilize as part of your strategy, right? Because
Yeah.
not every platform is appropriate for every strategy.
Right.
And that's where we kind of, I think, also kind of get bogged down, because we sometimes as marketers try to falsely follow trends. But from my experience, is following trends is worthwhile if you understand the trend, if you
Right.
understand where it's going and why it's going in that particular direction. You
Right.
got to remember that not every platform is appropriate for every brand.
Right.
It really depends on what the product, service, the customer base, the demographic. A lot of different factors really come into play when selecting a platform where you want to advertise, because
Right.
again, not every eyeball is a valuable eyeball for a specific brand.
Yeah, that's right. Well, especially because you're getting targeted ads from ATN, and so they're wasting CPM on you. Maybe I don't know. No, I'm kidding. So, Steve, it might be a funny question, but why do you think you? It's a two-part question. Why do you think you were hired, and what's your mandate? the end of the day?
That is a very good question. Well, honestly, after I left ATN, I left because I wanted to spend a little more time with the family. I kind of want to take a break. It was kind of the last 6 years were very rewarding, and it was very challenging at times, but it was a lot very stressful. We had a lot of transitions in the family. My wife changed roles, and she had a lot more responsibility. I needed more time with the family, take care of stuff. So, um, honestly, I wasn't looking for work. A lot of
Yeah,
companies in my space were kind of reaching out to me
yeah,
because maybe they saw what I did with the last 6 years with ATN. But talking to several of them and talking to the brand, what the companies were about, I knew the Armasight name previously in the space. I knew the original founder. Funny enough, he was at one point I worked with him at AT, and he was part of AT American Technologies previously. A great guy.
yeah.
The current company that owns Armasight, Essentria, owns several brands, and I've worked with those brands also in my sales capacity at American Technologies.
Okay.
So I knew a few of the individuals that were kind of running the organization, and respected them, respected their stance, positioning in the industry.
Hmm.
Century owns Optics Planet, Camp Saver, a few other brands, which are really kind of very large players in the shooting sports vertical. And
And
the
when it came down to, you weren't looking, but when it came down to, there was obviously an interview or something like, why do you think you were selected to lead this, or why did you select? I guess I don't know the
I
dynamic.
think we both. I think it was mutual.
Yeah.
We both selected each other.
Yeah.
Uh, when I had a few interviews, and truth be told, just for the fun of it, when I was called for a face-to-face in Chicago, I thought, I'm not going to show up empty-handed. I'm going to do a deck. I just did it for fun. I did a deck, and my vision and thought how to approach the marketing department and what would need to do to kind of resurrect the brand, because Armasight has been around for several years. It was acquired then by a very big company in the space, and the brand was divested because they wanted to get out of the space. It was dormant for a few years and presented a lot of challenges. So I felt like this brand is worthwhile resurrecting because it has the pedigree, it has the brand equity, and kind of the industry knows it. So there was something there, and I really kind of gravitated toward the original founder that was part of this organization now again, and the other individuals that I had, conversed with, that wanted me to come on board. And I felt that there was that synergy and that same passion for the
Right.
brand.
Right.
And I thought that, why not? I think I could do a good job, and I love the industry, and I wanted to, continue being in the industry. So, here I am 7 months later. But yeah, I did the deck for fun, and
Awesome.
I think, I don't know if it impressed them, but they saw the value in it, and
Yeah.
a lot of my strategy from that deck kind of migrated to my like business proposal
Right.
slash budget. A lot of those elements were incorporated because that's exactly what they were looking for. Because they my mandate was brand awareness, to growing the brand and growing brand awareness. And
Okay.
it's a difficult endeavor because there's challenges in tracking it. With performance marketing, it's a bit easier because you have channels, you have attribution models, you know where the traffic is coming from to a specific site, you have conversion metrics. You see the ROI instantly, right?
Mhm.
Because of the digital space we work in, you see that flow, that funnel, right? With brand awareness, and especially since the brand is sold through many different channels, small dealers, large distributors, e-commerce, Amazon, on Optics Planet, other sites, how do you track, yeah, you could track global sales, but is it because of the marketing that you're doing? Is it something that maybe the sales is doing? It's very challenging to kind of attribute that ROI dollar for dollar measurement for that. So the jury's still out.
Yeah.
I still am kind of working on implementing a few things. I'm not done yet.
Well, you know
Uh,
what's funny with that? I often say there is one way you can know for sure the impact of marketing, but very rarely would you pull this trigger, and that is just to take all marketing out of the market, right, and see what happens to global sales. But it's
yeah.
a test. It's a test not worth doing. But
That's a
anyways,
very dangerous game, in
yeah.
my opinion, right?
Tell
But
me,
but the thing
yeah,
is, you even if you as a brand pull all marketing from the market,
yeah,
the people that are sitting on your inventory, unless they want
right,
to continuously sit on that marketing, will market the product because
right,
it's dollars invested. So
right,
there's no real way to remove all marketing if you're using like channel distribution. If you're
yeah,
direct to consumer,
right,
if your model is only D2C, and you remove all marketing and you see if the trend continues in terms of sales increasing. If you see the sales plummet, then you know that the marketing is what's doing
right,
the magic, right? But when you are in a decentralized kind of channel with so many kind of resellers and individuals
right,
that are
right.
selling the product, unless they really don't care about moving inventory and
Yeah.
sit and sitting on those dollars, you can't.
Yeah. Oh,
That's not a
I'm only
possibility,
kidding.
really.
When you came on to Armasight first day, was there a marketing team that existed, or did you have the mandate as well to kind of build that from scratch? Is there a team involved today, and what does that structure look like?
um, it's a complex answer, or actually question. The answer is even more complex, and honestly, I don't
Yeah,
think
well,
we
you have
should kind of
certainly
dive into
so
that.
team can come in a lot of different facets, right? Can you explain sort of maybe in this way, what does the integration of marketing look like through the organization right now? What stakeholders do you leverage? Do you participate with? Do you get critical insights and establish?
No,
Exactly.
we have many teams. It's all very cross-functional because we have uh, a brand called the Third Bull, which is our sales
Okay.
arm. So Armasight in itself, we don't have an internal sales team.
Right.
We leverage the Third Bull as our sales organization, which consequently is part of Eccentric Group as well. It's one of their brands,
Okay.
and they have a sales team and outside sales reps, and they are the, I don't want to say foot soldiers, but they're the feet in the ground that go to visit dealers, distributors, and get us a placement in those channels, including other brands as well.
Gotcha.
So I have to kind of work hand in hand with their marketing director to promote our brand of
Uh,
products, work together on campaigns, different events, um, some shared resources of sorts, not really. So, building out a team also is challenging because things have to go through HR, through legal. Think it's a big organization. Things take a little bit longer to
right.
do because there's a little more red tape.
Right.
Something I'm not as used to before because the processes were different. So
Okay.
a lot of different adjustments. Let's
Right.
just put it
Right.
that way. And that's normal because any organization will have standard operating procedures, mechanisms, and things you have to follow for a specific reason because they haven't been around since
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Typical organizations have been around for a while and they've learned things through various pain points and had to put things in place to make the machine hum, as it
Right.
were. So navigating through those kind of channels initially was a little challenging, but I've gotten quite a bit accustomed to
Yeah,
navigating those
no,
waters.
for sure. What would you say, Steve, if you could own, or if you could comment on what do you believe your superpower is as a marketing leader that best positions you to excel in corporate scenarios like this against mandates like yours that you've been within industry like but what's the thing that makes you most confident your superpower as a marketing leader?
Superpower. I don't know that it's a superpower. That's a tough question because everybody sees things from a different perspective. I think I try to see things from a consumer perspective because my years in sales and customer service and in this vertical, really being in the trenches for a while, I understand where the customer comes from, right? Because especially with a product like ours, when you're dealing in average order value in the thousands of dollars, people do a lot of research. People do, visit forums, talk to friends, talk to people about a brand's reputation, brand quality. There's so many nuances and facets that you really have to have the pulse of the customer. And which that in itself presents lots of challenges because even if you're able to dissect the demographic and the customer and really know who they are, how do you reach them where they consume the content, right? Because we live in an age right now where I think statistically, the average person has an attention span of what, less than 20 seconds now, right?
Yeah.
So your messaging has to be on point and concise, and the value proposition of your product or service has to be so that you really garner their attention, and that's a really difficult thing to do today, right? And being able to reach them anywhere and everywhere they may possibly be, I think I've learned how to do that pretty
Mm,
well, and using various mechanisms.
right.
I wish I could share them with you, but then I
No,
define
no, no,
for
no,
sharing proprietary
no,
information. But the
absolutely.
thing is, knowing how to reach your target demographic is the most important, I think, piece of the puzzle with a compelling message and value proposition. Because you have to, I don't want to consider myself as a troll, but I
Yeah.
troll all the forums in the space. I read all the negative, positive, and between comments on Facebook, on Reddit, you name it. I have to follow it because as a marketer, I have to know what the perception of my brand is in the market space.
Right.
And I have to know how to pivot and learn how to address the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because if I can't address those concerns, the audience, the target audience, my customer is not going to react or engage or pay attention to me because I'm not addressing their pain point.
Right.
We as marketers are in the business of providing solutions for problems for a problem that a customer has, right? What is a product? We sell
Right.
something, right? Something tangible, intangible, a service.
Right.
What we need to establish is how can we service the customer and provide them the best experience possible? Because if you're able to do that, they'll not only gravitate toward your brand or your service, they will engage with you, and eventually they will become your customer because you will build trust
Right.
with them, and with trust you will see the conversions.
I think you downplay the fact that it's not a superpower. I think customer centricity and having that as the sort of the leading element or variable that you construct your function around and go against your mandate through. I think that that's a huge superpower. Like I believe so many marketing leaders today forget exactly what you talked about, that understanding the deep core motivations, desires for transformation that these audience members have is day one, step one, right? And so I think that that's I'd consider it a superpower, Steve. Maybe humility is another one of your superpowers. I'm not sure, but as much as you're comfortable sharing, the reality for all marketing leaders is that not everything is perfect, not everything is clear, clear sailing. So perhaps other than the industry challenges related to getting banned on Meta and these types of things, like what is one big, real, meaningful challenge that that burdens you today as a marketing leader in your function?
Besides platforms not liking us, being able to kind of shuffle through the noise, being relevant, it's very difficult. There's a lot of smart people out there, a lot of, my hat's off to all the marketers out there, because if you're in this space, you're a masochist because you love being tortured. um it's you're always waking up at night thinking about the next big thing that you can leverage to be where your customers, again, I kind of reverberate back to the customer. It's all about the customer.
Yeah.
If we don't see us as servicing the customer or being able to engage the customer and being holistically, presenting a holistic image of a brand to the customer, that your brand is what the customers really needs to consider in terms of the product or service, that you are the solution that they're looking for, you will never be a successful marketer, in my opinion, because unless you understand your customer, it's going to be all uphill. And it's one of those things, it's I don't know, I always look for the new thing. Right. I'm enjoying AI, honestly. It's not as a cheat, but right, as a thought regurgitator. It sometimes helps you.
Did you hear what Gary Vee just recently said about AI? He said, not for it to do tasks for you, but to be your thinking partner.
Absolutely.
I thought that was awesome.
I enjoy listening to him and his perspectives, and he can be very ahead of his time. But there's other people in the space that are kind of ahead of their time, and sometimes the industry takes a little bit longer to understand where it needs to be and position yourself. But I also want to kind of mention, and industry partnerships and collaborations are very valuable. And I don't want to discount those, because those are very important partnerships, because if another brand has some synergies with your brand and you're not competing against each other, on a technical level, like from a product capability or solution, collaborating on marketing efforts can be very valuable, because you could leverage each other's audiences. And typically, if there's a synergy already, let's say, for an example, let's say if we are selling a thermal weapon sight, a scope, and we're partnering with a rifle company, and if we let them borrow a product for their photo shoot for their catalog, and their audience who buys their rifle sees our product, it'll kind of entice them to what's that? That's kind of interesting. Let me find some more information about that. So there's lots of different ways to collaborate with industry brands in your vertical. There's ways to leverage partnerships, and partnerships are very important. I think a lot of people think that as marketers, we have to kind of stick in our lane and not collaborate with other companies in our space, but you're kind of holding yourself back because you're not leveraging the
Right.
audience that they kind of cater to. And sometimes there's overlap, right? And being able to leverage um, synergetically that audience can really yield a lot of benefit. And typically it's not as expensive.
Totally. No, I think that that's a very obvious but very unused lever by a lot. So can I can I get you to validate at least my understanding on the way you deal with? You mentioned that you like to keep an eye out for what's next, what the next technology or capability is, but it sounds like you avoid the negative parts of chasing shiny objects by simply being aware, but then looking at its application through the lens of your customer centricity based approach, right? So there's a 10 million things you can do, but
I'll give you a great example.
okay.
TikTok is a very popular platform.
Yeah.
There's millions, if not like maybe a billion users on TikTok. We are experimenting with it and using it, but I don't think we're going to be continuing using it. We're not running ads on it because honestly, our audience is not really on there. So why would we want to use our resources and our kind of time trying to create content and trying to reach an audience that potentially will never be our customer?
Yeah.
So something like that. It's, TikTok is a great platform for some brands, but I don't feel like it's really a good platform for our brand.
Right. No, it's a great example. Yeah. When leave you with this question, Steve, and I told you I feel like we could have talked for another hour, but I'll leave you with this question. Fast forward 2, 3, 4, 16 years from now, is in your last example or your last job. However long that you are leading the marketing function for Armasight, what are 1 or 2 or 3 of the things that you hope would be written about your leadership and your tenure at Armasight? What does the future hold for the marketing function at Armasight? What are some of the storylines that were completed? Whether they come true or not, Steve, I'm not going to hold you to it. But
man, that's tough. I'm too humble. I don't like to toot my own horn honestly, but
let me, or you can
it's
answer it this way: what's the future hold for Armasight in your belief? Where do you think this brand is?
I think the future is very bright. I think there's so much potential. I think there's so much untapped potential. We have a fantastic roadmap in terms of product development. Our approach, I think, is in line with what our space kind of is looking for in terms from a manufacturing partner. Yes, a lot of companies in our space are trying to do the D2C route. I think a more hybrid approach would probably be best suited. Probably because our space is more traditional, more in the B2B side of things. In the next 6 months to a year, I'm planning to redevelop our website because it's a little bit too e-commercey for my taste, and we're going to be more manufacturing from more manufacturer perspective, more informative, kind of educational. Building out brand ambassadors, I think, is very important that help, engage the audience and consumers out there and help with content creation. Because I think the most valuable thing nowadays, content is king. Producing content on an ongoing basis is very time consuming and extremely expensive. So if you're able to develop a program that can leverage customers or individuals that are experts in your space and want to be associated with your brand and provide ongoing content for you, leveraging that is, my goodness, it's one of the most valuable things you could leverage, because those people are not only experts in the field because of the sheer experience and the perspective they bring in terms of product performance, quality, engagement with the audience that they could provide you as feedback for the product and service that you
Yeah.
create, but also being advocates for your brand. They say that a happy person tells, like 10
Yeah.
people, unhappy customer tells anybody they talk to, right? Or something
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. I'm probably
No, I get it.
misquoting that, or something. I'm not big on quotes, honestly.
You get the essence of it though, and you're
Yeah,
totally right.
exactly. But it's marketing is very dynamic. You can't sit still. You always have to be learning. In sales, it's ABC, always be closing. My motto is ABL, always be learning,
Right.
because you got to be learning, and not just from the industry. You got to learn from your competitors. You got to see what they're doing. You got to survey the lay of the land, and see how they're approaching the same type of customer, how they're creating the content, what content they're creating. I'm not saying copying them or imitating them, but learning from what's doing well and doing things that would do even better for you or just as well, and maybe not imitating or not doing things that are not doing well for them because they already went to the exercises, spending the money for you, and you don't have to go through that pain point of spending your money on things that don't work, right? So you got to be smart, you got to be tactician, you got to play chess in marketing, and you have to learn. Go to forums. There's a wealth of forums on Facebook and other places, on SEO, on affiliate marketing, on programmatic, on so many things. There's industry experts and insiders that are willing to share info with you, and the community that revolves around these forums and groups in the marketing space. Some things may work for some verticals, some things may not work for some, but that's, your choice as, the leader in your marketing department, to select what best suits your organization based on not just the vertical you're operating, but really the customer that you're servicing. Again, not every platform is valuable to every brand.
Yeah. I love it. Love your approach, Steve. I love your customer centricity, the gamesmanship that you apply to this function in this role. I know a lot of people listening certainly will have taken a lot of value from this. So, everyone, my guest, Steve Lemenov, Director of Marketing, Armasight. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Caleb. Appreciate you.